I think this is somebody who was imagining some Nigerian film and therefore, giving himself some accolades and yeah, seriously, I'm telling you. And then we are taking the matter, this is, the traditional authorities have come and said that they haven't given him any such position, any such, And indeed, they have confirmed that no such land acquisition has actually been made by this man. So I think that, at least from the little information I have about this matter, based on the news I have picked up since it first broke, I don't think it is anything that is of any serious threat or danger. I just hope that we manage it in such a way that it does not have any, because we're having problems. In as much as we want African integration, we want to build a continental Africa, we want to, bring our economies together. We are seeing difficulties. Look at the difficulties in South Africa. The way the local population is rising up against non-indigenous South Africans, especially West Africans. It used to be people from Zimbabwe. Now the people from Zimbabwe have virtually run away from South Africa. But now it's West Africans and Ethiopians who seem to be their targets. Now when West Africans go to clinics in South Africa, the people chase them out. And they even threaten medical staff who attend to some of these people when other indigenous South Africans are still in the queue. So this is a matter that, for me, I think we should not really blow out of proportion. Here's somebody who, as I said, I think the man was dreaming of a Nigerian film or something and had his own ideas. But from the little I know, I don't think it is something that should be escalated beyond what it is, in order that it does not send out some wrong signals to our political and business community. I don't know what the politically exposed individuals who wined and dined with him were trying to, what message were trying to, connote. I don't know what their intentions were, whether to give the impression that either he has some legitimacy, or I don't know what their intentions were at all. I have no idea. I hadn't even heard about it. But I think that this is something that should not be blown beyond what it appears to be. There is no Igbo community. There may be Igbo communities. If you go to Accra Circle, there are a lot of Nigerians who have shops there. And I'm sure if you go there, you'll find that among them, there may be those who are from the Igbo area, those who are from the northern Nigeria, those who are from... This is a natural occurrence that you find there. But I don't think this constitutes a state capture of part of Ghana to be made Igbo land or something like that. I don't see it as such at all. That's the way I see it.
Okay. Honorable Inusa Fuseni, I'm still waiting for you to take me to your farm.
Okay, yes.
So when are we going?
Yes.
when are we visiting your...
We will go. Where we will go?
Oh, so when will we go?
We will go.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. It's been a while.
Yes. Last week we missed Master.
Yes.
It was somewhere launching a book.
Yes. Let me go for this quick commercial break. When I return, I will ask Honorable to speak to the first topic. Quick commercial break. Stay with us.
Hello, Madam Bola. How are you and how is Lagos?
Kwame, Lagos day. How is Accra?
Accra is fine. We can't complain. Are my fabrics on the way?
Yes, I hope my money is also on the way.
As we speak, my accountant is sending money to you and others at GCB.
Money don't enter.
That is a lifesaver. Yeah, Lady D. What's up, baby?
Tia, I got the money.
Oh, that's beautiful. It was fast.
Oh, and guess what? It was so easy and faster than I thought.
I'm busy right now. Let me call you back later, yeah? All right. Love you, baby.
See you soon. Bye.
From country to country, make seamless transactions across Africa with GTB. For more information on parts and how to get started, call toll free on 0800 422 422.
GCB, your bank for life.
Let me remind viewers that we're streaming live on Facebook and on YouTube as well. Pan-African Television on both platforms. Share your views, your thoughts, your comments, disagreements, agreements with us here. We will be glad and willing to read those messages here on the show. Honorable Enos of Hussein, let me come to you. First topic.
Oh yes, I think that the communication that emerged from the head chief of the Igbos in Ghana, from the Nungwa area, or no, Ningo area, was misleading to say the least. And so because it was misleading, it offended the sensibilities of many Ghanaians. No one in his right senses will accept a claim by any foreigner or non-Ghanaian settling on land belonging to traditional leaders or chiefs and creating a kingdom in that traditional area. I mean, nobody, and that would be a challenge to the traditional authority of the chiefs of that area. So no one. And it is in that context that many Ghanaians were appalled and alarmed that a communication of that nature had come out. So what was going to be the status of the chiefs and people of the Nungwa people vis-a-vis the Igbo community? But everybody knows that where a group of people not indigenous to the land migrate to settle on the land, they come together for their common good and elect their leader. In fact, there is a decision of the Supreme Court which says that the Gumba chief of the Ashanti region was not a chief properly so called, but it was a headman. Okay, so the head of the people originating from the same area or associated by the same language or culture is a headman and not a chief. So, because but the chief has been defined by our constitution. You must hail from the appropriate family or lineage. So, I mean, so you can't be establishing a kingdom in Ningo area when you are not part of the lineage of chiefs of that area. You can't. I mean, we can't recognize that. And so that is in the context in which I condemn. And I've since read the response of the Igbo community in Ningwa and Ningo. And they're saying, oh, this interview they granted was so many years ago to Crystal TV, where the idea of acquiring land, okay, and establishing a community for the Igbo people was discussed. But that idea never materialized. So that idea is dead. But because social media is there, somehow that that interview that was granted to Crystal TV so many years ago surfaced, and it looks like it's a new thing. So that idea is dead, and so people should disregard the story. And I'm saying this to allay the fears of many, and because I've seen many commentaries on social media of people who have taken interest in what has been said and have, suggested that we should not to relate. And no, it's an old, according to the Igbo people, their leadership, it's an old interview granted to Crystal TV, which found its way back. But people do gather. I mean, in Kumasi we have a Dagomba chief. In Accra we have a Dagomba chief. Wherever we have a Musi chief here. Okay, in Tamale we had Joshua Alabi's father, you know, was the Gan chief in Tamale. Was the Gan chief in Tamale, and he was duly recognized by the chiefs and people of Tamale as the Gan chief. He had his house. Even 2 days ago, someone was telling me that house, when I get to Joshua, I should tell him to go and renovate the house, because that house plays a significant part for the Gan community in Tamale. And that is where their chief was. Okay? In the United States of America, in Bronx, there is a Zongo chief. It's a Zongo chief, and all the people gather around him, and if news arrivals come into the community, they are sent to the Zongo chief, and they are interrogated, and they are cautioned and advised on how to go about their lives. So it's there. I mean, it's there. We immigrate, we move, people move, and when they move and get to communities, they try to identify with their fellows, those who are, I mean, coming from the same area. I'll tell you a story. When I was growing up, I was told a story about a man and a woman hail from the north who could not see eye to eye within the Tamale area. Somehow, they left the northern region at different times and went to Canada. They were not, they did not know that they were, none of them knew that the other was in Canada. Then one day, they chanced at a grocery shop. He said, oh wait, when did you come to Canada? So when but they were not seeing eye to eye. But in Canada, because of the affinity, because of the closeness, because of the relationship, they forgot that they could not see eye to eye back in their home country. So when did you come? Oh, where are you? It culminated in the woman inviting the man to come and then have some food in the house, because the man spoke about the local foods. They said, oh, I can prepare some for you. And they forgot everything and got together, because when you go outside and you are living in a community of people who are not close to you, who you can identify with, in fact, your distant relative becomes your closest relative. And so yes, and that is how it works. So the Igbos, yes, they get together. We've heard stories about how they are also inward looking, in the sense that even their businesses, they give the businesses to. Someone was telling me, around my house in Tamale, the Igbos an Igbo man has acquired a big house, and he's putting his wares there. And then someone was telling me that, hey, even those who offload the trucks when they come, Igbos, so they don't like they don't want the money to go to I said, me, I've seen that too. The wash, there are many other groups that behave that same way in this country. And so yes, it doesn't really matter, since if they are living, if they are good citizens, they are paying their taxes to the state, they are helping the communities in which they live, they are law abiding, and because you can find us everywhere. But it is not acceptable. It cannot be accepted that a non-indigenous settles on land that belongs to the ancestors of a people and establishes a kingdom on that land. Now, that one there is totally unacceptable. And I'm happy that they have debunked that and said they never even thought about that. And that what is circulating is an old video. So let's leave it at that and monitor the situation.
Well, I think that it's important to design a method. Mm-hmm. Because without a method, analysis would not be concrete enough. So when any issue comes up, the first thing to do is to distill the principles. Yeah. And then on the basis of the principles, you can proceed to do a concrete analysis of whatever issue there is. Now, one, any community, yeah, anybody, they can be Igbos, they can be whatever. If they go into another community and decide to create an enclave for themselves, what are the principles involved? First, it is clear that they want to live by themselves and not fully integrate into the community that they have gone into. This will seriously suggest clannishness, emphasis on ethnicity, or what some people call tribalism, and so on. It is negative.
It's negative, yeah.
It is negative. These are the practices which lead to nepotic behavior. You understand? We speak the same language, we have the same culture, and therefore we ought to help each other against others who do not speak our language and others who do not have our culture and so on. This is the problem. You understand? It's a huge problem. And especially for those of us who believe that ultimately we ought to build Pan-African unity. This madness, absolute madness of creating clannish societies, of creating societies, communities which are based on language identity and so on, is clearly unacceptable. And it does not matter whether it is Igbos or Fantis or Nzemas or whatever. The inability to move out of our ethnic enclaves into the broader community and relate with people as human beings rather than kinsmen and so on is a huge problem. And it's not just a problem for Ghana, it's a problem for everywhere in the world. And we should have a problem with that if Irish come into Ghana and say, we want to create an Irish colony in Ghana. We should have a problem with it. I have a problem with a situation where today, in so-called liberated South Africa, there are white-only enclaves. It's a problem. It's the same thing here. So we should condemn this in the strongest possible terms because it does not make for unity and for the development of common purpose across cultural and ethnic lines. And in today's world, it's a very reckless, foolish, and unacceptable move. That is my concern. You see, when issues crop up, people milk it for all kinds of purposes. Now, if you go on social media, there appears to be a competition between NDC and NPP about who is responsible for this. So NPP elements have taken photographs of NDC top wits who have been seen in some social gatherings with this self-proclaimed Igbo king. And NDC elements have also gone to take photographs of NPP elements who have taken photographs with this self-proclaimed Igbo king. So, is that the issue? That's not the issue. You understand? So even within Ghana, the situation in which we have people, ethnic groups of other regions, migrating to other regions and forming enclaves and so on, must be condemned. Yeah. I am completely disgusted, with provisions of in our constitution which seem to institutionalize this attempt to see everything from a tribal and ethnic perspective. I'm worried about it. What do I care? If tomorrow Ghana has a government which is composed 50% by Nzemas and is improving access to education, roads are being constructed, healthcare, access to healthcare is improved, people's living standards are raised, there's no discrimination against anybody on the basis of ethnicity and so on. What is my problem? And indeed, these forms of representation are meaningless. Master, you are a Dagumba, alright? When you became Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, what special thing did Dagumbas get which others did not get under your ministerial direction? You were there to serve Ghana. You were there to serve Ghana. You were there to serve Evers, to serve Fantis, to serve Gas, to serve Nzumas, to serve Dagatis, and so on. But the insistence that a Dagoma must necessarily be present in government is foolish. The insistence that a Fanti must necessarily be present in government is foolish. Because bottom line, and when you go to a cabinet meeting, you are taking decisions. You are taking decisions which will be in the best interest of the NDC. Why? If you go to an NPP cabinet meeting, you find an Ebe there, you find a Fanti there, you find a Fafra there, you find an Nzima there, you find an Achim there. When they go to sit in the NPP, the NPP cabinet meeting, do you think that they are worried about Nzima and so on and so forth? They are thinking about how to win the next election. But when they come out of the cabinet meeting and they want to get our votes and so on, they divide us on the basis of our ethnicity. You know, I think this nonsense has to stop. And unfortunately for me, it does not matter when this idea came up. The fact that the idea came up needs to be condemned. You understand? The fact that anybody thought of creating an exclusively Igbo community in Ghana is a problem. It would have been the same if anybody had thought of creating an exclusively Indian community in Ghana or an exclusively Chinese community in Ghana. I mean, it doesn't make sense. In 2025, we cannot be building new apartheid communities. These are new apartheid communities. You understand? So I condemn it in the strongest possible terms, and it should not be allowed. We should not encourage it. It is not in the interest of the world for us to begin to build our societies on the principles of apartheid.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Pratt. I've seen some of your messages coming in. I'll read them as we progress. Honorable Enos Afuseni, the Energy Minister has been talking. And he's been talking very tough. He says that we won't have power outages anymore because of the investments the government is making relative to the energy sector. ECG is working around the clock to ensure that some of the shortfalls that they had are dealt with. Also, they have terminated some 125, I believe, some 120, 200 contracts that they found to be, not progressive, if you like, in terms of value for money. And so all of this put together is what is giving the Energy Minister the confidence to conclude that we're not going to deal with power outages anymore. Is that the case?
Well, so let's, and I like the way my brother Comrade Kosovo Pratt has gone about the first topic. Let's set the principles.
Very well.
When the Energy Minister says we're not going to have power outages, does it mean to say that we're not going to have load management? Okay, and because power outages are definitely different from load management. Now, power could go off just because a transformer has blown, and that is beyond the control of the Minister of Energy. A Brock station, you remember so many years ago, Achimota was in serious problems because some of the machines had just simply blown off, and so they had to fix them. I mean, and when they are blown off, you can't have power. Okay, if in the rainy season, if a tree falls on the pylons moving through the Ashanti region to the north, the whole of the north might not have power because we have not done the circuitry system where we have other route to send the power. So the whole of the north might be cut off. But that will not be a load management, but that definitely is going to be a power outage. So when you communicate this way, you create the problem for yourself. And when the power goes off, then people will say, well, you said the power will not go off. And then when people don't discount the fact that your ability to keep the power on is limited to factors that you can control. Okay, so I believe that what the minister is saying is that, look, we got enough resources now, or we're putting in place mechanisms to ensure that our fuel for our power plants will be secured. Another gas plant is coming on board. The water levels are very assuring. Our crude that we will, light crude that we will need to fire our turbines in the event that we don't have sufficient gas have been assured, and all things being equal, we will not suffer from fuel deficiency that would result in power or load management. Load management is simply that when the power is not available, when water, just like Ghana water supply, Ghana water works, how they manage water to the various areas, where the water is not enough to go around, they manage the water by giving you schedules where water will flow at particular locations at certain times, so to ensure that all people are served, but nobody is served in such a way as to deprive another person from getting the water. That's a management issue. And so I think that I will take it from the point of view of the management side. But ECG and the Ministry of Energy still has many difficulties to contend with. In the press conference, we were told that GOIL is suffering under crushing debt. And that is that is part of the Ministry of Energy. They provide some stabilization in the downstream sector in supplying finished products. And if the Ghana company itself, GOIL, Ghana Oil, that's GOIL, is having problems, then can we have that assurance that energy itself will be secured in this country? Then you have ECG unable to collect their sales, the tariffs, revenue that ought to be generated by ECG by reason of the fact that there are commercial and technical losses running into about 40% of ECG's operations. How will that impact on the availability of energy and their ability to discharge their mandate? How will that impact on the finances of government? Is the Ministry of Finance going to find a way to always subsidize government? Yeah, the minister said, look, we are not going to do that. We are going to buy our fuel, liquid fuel and everything on our own budget so that we can free the ministry to be able and have them, give them some fiscal space to be able to do things in other sectors of the economy. Relying heavily on what has just happened, the 1 cedi upward adjustment on the fuel levy. And so how is that going to work? I mean, we just started. We've not collected. We don't know the unintended consequences of this. Will that reduce the low consumption of petroleum products and whatnot? We don't know yet. So let's watch the situation carefully. The ministry, I sympathize with my brother John Jirapo. The ministry, and I was there, he said, and he was there earlier before he became a substantive minister. The ministry is not easy. It's difficult. Energy runs the world. Energy runs Ghana. When I went to South Korea, I saw the direct correlation between energy and progress of a country. In South Korea, when Nkrumah built our Akosobo Dam, we had more installed capacity of power than South Korea. So we were more advanced. We had more industries than South Korea. In fact, we had more power that the part of the arrangement to build Akosobo was to get Kaiser to come and build an aluminum smelter. The power was so cheap that they could transport alumina from Jamaica to the smelter here and still make profit. Meaning they were not making profit. They were just underbuying our power. Okay? But look at South Korea. In 2013 or thereabouts. No, not 13. 2011 or thereabouts, I went there. That was the time that they were. Is it 2010? That was the time of the World Cup. anytime South Korea was to play, they had to shut off their engines, their turbines, and the plants, because it meant that workers will have to move and stop work to watch South Korea play, and that meant that they had to take remedial steps to protect the generators that were producing the power. That should tell you that there is a direct correlation between the level of development of a country and the availability of power. There's a direct correlation. And see how we are spreading in this country. We can't build skyscrapers or what is it? Why? Because we don't have enough energy to pump water from ground level to 100 floor or 50 floor. No, we don't have. So you see, everybody, we are consuming our lands. Our farmlands are becoming concrete because there's no power. We have a smelter. We're not putting the smelter to use. So if you crank the smelter into operation, we won't have power. We won't have. So this suppressed demand. So we have got challenges. I just hope that as we continue looking at the ways to implement the 24-hour economy, as we continue to look at ways to grow the economy, and energy is critical in the growth of any economy, we will be looking at the possibility of establishing plants that are cheap and that will make energy available and accessible. But for now, I think that we just need to tarry slowly. Tarry slowly. Thank you.
Yes, my good brother has really hit the nail on the head. You know, of course, he's been there, has a lot of experience there. But see, there was one aspect that I really appreciate, which he said, and that is that the minister should go easy. He should go easy. Yes, there are some commendable achievements that have been chalked in this short period. There's no doubt about it. Hearing some of the things he said, the successful, infusion of this additional gas into the generation process, that went on very seamlessly and smoothly. The power outage that we had anticipated, that would be a consequence of that for that period of, integration, didn't even occur, and it went on very smoothly, which I think is a commendable achievement. He also mentioned that, as at this time, revenues from ECG now, as compared to this time last year, is gone up by about 30%, which I must say is very, very phenomenal. And then, in terms of the energy management, I think he also said a few things to the effect that there's a plan to bring in solar-powered streetlights, about 23,000 of them or so. And that would also particularly take care of that heavy demand schedule of power. All the streetlights will go off national grid and therefore put a bit more power into the system. All these things sound very, very commendable and very, very good. But you are dealing with human institutions and human systems run by human beings and things like that. And then there are other things that are way beyond the control of anybody. So I would urge that he goes easy on raising our expectations, because some successes have been chalked, but we should go easy. I'm beginning to get the feel that some of the appointees are getting a bit too enthusiastic about some initial and preliminary successes, and that is very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. That is the first route for failure. I'll give a typical example. Yesterday I went for a meeting in Ajabing area, that's Kingsway, the old Kingsway, SCOA area. I was shocked at the traffic. the traffic build-up going into Accra Center.
Right now it's terrible.
It is worse than before.
Yeah, right now it's just...
How long ago were we jumping and celebrating that the situation had been dealt with and the roads were clear and traffic was flowing? And how long ago? We must put systems in place to maintain what we achieve. We don't do 9-day wonders and then celebrate and more interested in the photo ops and the political gimmicks of it. That one does not impress anybody at all. So, back to the issue of the energy, I would say that the measures being put in place and additional measures that were mentioned about government officials also beginning to migrate from these guzzling SUVs to electric power vehicles. Electric power vehicles whose power will also be provided by solar panels, charging stations fueled by solar panels. All these things sound very good on paper, sound very good to the ears, but we must have those systems in place. We must have them working. We must have them functional. We must have them placed advantage areas that will make it really functional. So it is quite good and nice to lay all these things out to us, but the bottom line is the actual delivery on the ground. Expectations, yes, like I'm saying, all expectations have been raised, and we've been given good cause to have those expectations raised. But at the end of the day, it is the bottom line delivery of those expectations that make the issue. You know, there's a second gas plant that is coming up. Good news. Second gas plant coming up will mean more gas into our power generation system, which will reduce the cost of power production. You know, so hopefully, not only will we have more sustained power, we will have more buffer power to fund, to fuel development, more development. You know, so it is good. The schedules must be met. The plants must be working. You know, and all these things must be translated. You know, I'm yet to hear anything about BUI. What's happening with BUI?
Yeah.
Let's not abandon BUI. BUI was a project that was initiated, it started, it was working, it had its challenges. I want to know the status of BUI. It was a major investment.
BUI Hydro.
Yeah, BUI Hydro, yeah.
It's working.
It's working.
It's a picking.
Okay, that's what we were told, that when it comes to, it adds to the system. Well, we need to have, you know, information about that as well, you know, to see how things, we should have a clear picture of the energy delivery system equation, you know. So let's look, let these things happen. Let's look forward to, and also the fact that we've had sustained power. We will also need the assurance that we have buffer, so that in case of regular maintenance and scheduled maintenance and unscheduled maintenance situations, there's power that can kick in to prevent the outages. And we must be told about those things as well. You don't just come out and say that you have eliminated. No, I think it goes beyond that. We must commend them for the way that it's been done. Yes, I also heard about the 200 contracts or so that have been terminated, and another 137 or so that is being looked into, running to hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, it gives the impression that ECG was just an area where people were just, I don't know.
Chopping money, left, right, center.
And you see, there must be accountability. There must be accountability. You know, it's too bad. So yes, I would commend for the initial successes chalked. I want to encourage them, but that shouldn't be the end of the story. Because like I said, in the case of the management of the city of Accra, some initial successes have rolled back in a very disastrous way.
Right.
And it's too early in the day. So we will keep government on its toes, but when commendation is due, I think we will give the commendation.
Very well. Mr. Pratt, please.
You see, more than 50 years ago, Ghana had a leadership which came to the conclusion that power generation and supply was critical to building any nation and the nation's survival. So it looked at all the potentials that we had and put all of that in a 7-year development plan. You understand? I'm talking about the Nkrumah government. The Nkrumah government envisaged that power supply was going to be key to its industrialization project, to its attempt to make education accessible to all the people of Ghana, you know, and everything. So it drew up a plan. Now, what was the plan? One of the planks was the creation of the Akosumbo hydroelectric power project, which at the time had the capacity for providing all the power needs of the country then, you understand. But in addition to that, the Nkrumah government also sought to explore other hydroelectric projects like the Bui power project, you know, and others. It even went to the extent of advocating the building of mini hydro projects across the country. And then it also started arrangements with the then Soviet Union to build a nuclear plant for power generation. And then went into green energy, the exploitation of green energy and so on. So if you take the 7-year development plan, which was abandoned on February 24, 1966, if we had followed it, we would not be where we are today. We would not have the power crisis that we have today. Now, since the overthrow of the Nkrumah government, we have done everything to dismantle that program. That program which was based on science, which was based on an evaluation of our power needs and so on. And that is why we're in trouble. One of the most foolish things that we did after the 1966 coup was to bring in an English expert to advise us on our energy requirement. And this English expert wrote a report in which he said that Ghana didn't need to expand its power generation capacity and that we should abandon the nuclear project which Nkrumah has started. Can you believe it? So we abandoned it. Look, on February 24, 1966, when the coup occurred, Soviet engineers were already at site, at the Bui Dam site, to build the Bui Dam project. You understand? That was also suspended for how many years? For decades and so on, before we came back to our sciences and went to build it. And Alhaji Musa Husseini is here. You know, every now and then, the Burkinabes open their Bagri Dam. When their Bagri Dam has too much water than they need and becomes dangerous, they open it. The consequence is that it causes tremendous havoc in the north, especially for people in the Upper West region. Farms are inundated with water, houses are destroyed, whole communities are destroyed, and so on. The solution is there. We have been told that what we need to do is to build another hydroelectric project at Savlugu. You understand? To take that water which is coming from Burkina Faso, so we can use it to generate electricity and use it also for agricultural purposes. Some people who think that they are too clever, you understand, and they have the problems all the time. They say that the power which will be generated there, if the hydro project is built, is not sufficient and so on. But they forget that this is an integrated project. So we'll generate power, we'll use it to boost agriculture, and use also that dam to avert the crisis which the people living in that area suffer all the time. That project, more or less, has been abandoned. Nobody is talking about it. Nobody is talking about the mini hydro projects anymore and so on. Instead, we went to the IMF and the World Bank, you know, for solutions, and they gave us crazy solutions. Now, first of all, Kwame, you see, when the United Nations was established after World War II, for a very, very long time, membership of the United Nations did not exceed 50. Ask yourself why. Because many countries in the world then were colonies, and colonies could not apply for membership of the UN. Okay? So the UN was a creation of the empire, the colonial authorities, to protect their interests, not our interests. The UN was not built for us, because at that time we were not part of the UN system. We didn't take part in the decisions leading to the establishment of the UN. It was countries like Britain, the United States of America, Germany, France, and so on, who built the UN system in order to serve their own interest against our interest. And we should not lose sight of that. Now, it is the UN constructed purposely to serve the interests of the empire, which created the institutions like the World Bank and the IMF and so on. So clearly, these institutions were also not created to serve our interests. These institutions were created to perpetuate our constant dependence on the colonial metropolis, to perpetuate our domination and so on. And our leaders forget this. So every now and then we go to IMF, we go to World Bank, they give us prescriptions which we follow strictly. And yet our economies are not improving. So there are only two deductions that we can make. Either the officials of the World Bank and the IMF are so woefully incompetent, or that the decisions they make for us are decisions of entrapment and so on. And our leaders cannot see this. So we go to IMF and World Bank and we say, look, we have power crisis, help us. And they say, okay, the thing to do is to take some aspects of power generation for the Volta River Authority, establish Bui Power Authority, have Volta River Authority. When it comes to distribution, have ECG, and have the other one, what is it called? NEDPO, and then another one, and so on. So they create a complete mess. And then they say you have to bring in independent power producers. Do you know what that means, Kwabi? These independent power producers, do you know what that means? What it simply means is that if you can find the resources, you go and buy a generator and come and put the generator in Ghana. We, the people of Ghana, through our government, will buy fuel to put in that generator. We will buy the fuel. All you have to do is just come and put a generator in Ghana. We buy the fuel to fuel it, and so on. Now, whether that generator produces power or not, we are going to pay you. Can you imagine this madness? This is what the IMF and the World Bank told us, that we should introduce independent power producers. So anybody, like you, like me, like my brother here, without any knowledge in power generation and so on, can go anywhere, arrange to get a generator, come and put it here, and we are earning millions of dollars free. And those millions of dollars are paid for by the Ghanaian taxpayer. And when those millions of dollars cannot be paid by the Ghanaian taxpayer, you come and threaten us that we are going to shut down the plant. I mean, complete madness. So that is why we are today. The result is that today, the power sector, we owe the power sector $3.7 billion. We can't pay. We can't pay. And they are threatening that, look, if you don't pay us $3.7 billion, we are not going to produce electricity. What do you mean the effect of that? The effect of that is that nothing can run. This television station cannot run, radio cannot run, vehicles cannot run, hospitals are in trouble, agriculture is in trouble, and so on. Because of this senseless arrangement that we went into. Okay. Now, I'm happy, and I tell you from the bottom of my heart that I'm very happy. You see, if you take the National Democratic Congress and the New Patriotic Party, they're all singing from the same hymn book. No doubt. All of them are pursuing the new liberal agenda. But you see, what is important is not the hymn book we are singing from. It has its own relevance and so on. But what is important is that two people can be singing from the same hymn book, and one can have a horrible voice and one can have a sweet voice. You understand what I'm saying? So they are singing from the same hymn book, but it seems to me that one has a voice which is a little bit more pleasant than the other. So the hymn book may be Methodist hymn book, but the voice of the singer is also important. I hope you understand what I'm saying. So this government has come into office within the last 6 months. Is putting in place what I would consider stopgap measures. These are stopgap measures. These are not the measures which are ultimately going to resolve our energy crisis, but they are meant to give us some relief for now. Okay? And what are these measures? The attempt to introduce this 1 cedi levy on fuel is an attempt to galvanize resources for us to be able to retard this indebtedness. It's a stopgap measure. It is not a permanent measure. It's a stopgap measure, but it can bring some relief. The cancellation of all of these contracts that the energy minister is talking about, you know, all these unfair contracts, these contracts which milk the nation and so on, are stopgap measures. They are not the final solution. They are stopgap measures. So it is important to take these stopgap measures. Now this should bring some relief. This should enable us to run, to generate power for some time and so on. But ultimately, this is not the final solution. I'm keenly aware of the fact that a couple of months ago, I think a month or two ago, government actually sent a delegation to Russia to go and reopen talks on the possibility of building a nuclear power plant. That is important. Going into the future, that is very important, you know. You see, Alhaji knows better than I do. He has headed that ministry before. There's what they call the power mix. It's very important. You see, if you take hydro generation, the cost of hydro generation per kilowatt hour or so is about 2 to 3 cents. Okay. If you take thermal generation, it's between 11 cents per kilowatt hour to about 25 cents per kilowatt hour. There's a range. So if you mix hydro and thermal generation, then you can strike an average which then the consumer pays. If you take hydro out, it becomes more expensive. If you depend more on thermal, you're going to pay more for electricity and so on. So there's a certain mix, and that mix has consequences for how much we pay for electricity. I want to see how thermal generation, no, not thermal generation, nuclear generation of power, you know, will change that dynamics and how that would affect the cost that consumers have to pay and so on. We have to do all of this analysis, you understand? So I'm happy that the current government is taking some steps to contain the problems of the power sector and so on. But I'll be happier if we take a long-term view of the power sector. If we begin to look at the power sector and how it can function and function efficiently and so on for the next 50, 60, 70, 100 years and develop a plan as Nkrumah did, then we'll be on the path to resolving the crisis of the power sector. But so far, I'm happy with the stopgap measures. I've heard people in the so-called minority, I don't know why they delight in calling themselves minority and so on, but I've heard people, especially from the New Patriotic Party, who are opposed to the imposition of this 1 cedi levy. Kwame, no problem. If the levy is not imposed, we'll buy petrol cheaper than we'll buy it today. That's a fact, okay? But then, I like to do something else. The cost of petrol today, as compared to petrol 6 months ago, what is it? Hasn't it come down? Hasn't it come down substantially? So yes, I mean, every levy takes away some money, some resources from the people. But look at the price of petrol when the levy had not been, had not been increased by 1 cedi. It was more than today when the levy has been increased by 1 cedi. So what are they talking about? Besides, what worries me is that, okay, you say the levy should not be imposed, fine. If the levy is not imposed, there's a debt of $3.7 billion in the power sector. How do you retire it? And when you ask them this question, they say, oh, the levy is actually meant to enable government buy fuel for generation. It's not about retiring the debt. I mean, what acrobatics? So, if government is able to generate resources to buy fuel for power generation, doesn't that constitute some saving which can then be used to retire the $3.7 million debt? And why don't people think? You want to get into politics and you don't want to think? And politics is about how to utilize the resources of the state, of the country, to solve the concrete problems of our people. You have to think. If you don't think, you are useless in politics. And so many people enter politics and block their minds. They refuse to think. They are a danger to the politics of this country. What is this?
Quick commercial break. I'll be back shortly. Stay with me. Don't move a muscle.
Hello, Madam Bola. How are you and how is Lagos?
Kwame, Lagos day oh. How is Accra?
Accra is fine. We can't complain. Are my fabrics on the way?
Yes, I hope my money is also on the way.
As we speak, my accountant is sending money to you and others at GCB.
Money don't enter.
That is a lifesaver.
Yeah, Lady D. What's up, baby?
Tia, I got the money.
Oh, that's beautiful. It was fast.
Oh, and guess what? It was so easy and faster than I thought.
I'm busy right now. Let me call you back later, yeah? All right. Love you, baby.
See you soon. Bye.
From country to country, make seamless transactions across Africa with GCB. For more information on parts and how to get started, call toll free on 0800 422 422.
GCB, your bank for life.
Welcome back. You're still watching the newspaper review segment here on Pan-African Television with my wonderful panelists, Honorable Linus Ofsene, Philip London, Mr. Pratt, and TT should have come earlier. Anyway, but Mr. London, you want to make a quick point and then, yeah.
The communication around this thing, I think, that's like Comrade Kwesi has just said, I think wasn't handled well at all. I mean, if the NDC government...
If you say communication, what do you... Well,
communication around the imposition of the 1 cedi per litre levy
okay,
to retire this $3.5 billion debt.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a big debt that is hanging around our necks. That's a major albatross. We have been lucky that the government, through its measures, prudent and some good luck on their part, because oil prices to have come down. And it has come from 17 to where it is.
Mm-hmm.
10 cedis per litre. And everybody is enjoying a massive saving. If the government now says, you know what, I think this is the debt we have, we need to retire it. I think a very good way of retiring it is to put a 1 cedi levy on every litre of fuel.
Yeah.
If that communication had been made to Ghanaians in a very reasonable manner, that look, this is what has happened, but we need your support and cooperation to add this 1 cedi. So I don't think anybody would have had any problem. But the way it was sneaked in the middle of the night, and they therefore reminded some people about the levy, it was so bad. That is why it had the consequences that it did. But I believe that if this communication had been handled better, there would not have been this delay in its implementation.
Yeah.
And between then and now, how many weeks? how much money would they have raked in by now?
True.
To begin to bring down this debt.
True.
You know what I'm saying?
True.
Because you see, the reality of life is that the government is also faced with some other uncertainties.
Absolutely. Created
Tomorrow,
by UPP anyway.
No, tomorrow somebody fires a missile at Iran or somewhere, the price starts war.
Yeah.
These are challenges you cannot. So if right now this is where we are, and it is, I don't see why that communication was not properly done. You see, now there's also this communication about energy, fuel allocations being removed. And the minority is crying foul. When Ken Ufuriata said something similar, 50% reduction, did anybody see anything wrong with it?
No.
These are the kind of things that has to be said. These are the kind of things that have to be said. There will be a saving to the national economy. It is a fact of life. You see, and our politics has gone beyond the point where people just say things and just for, you know, no. I think Ghanaians are a bit more discerning, and people will see the reality. If a government has said, I am withdrawing, it is the government that appointed you, and the government that gave you terms and conditions. It said it will give you fuel. Now the same government says, I have decided I won't give you the fuel.
Yeah.
Who can quarrel with that? If you don't like it, resign. Thank you very much. If you don't like it,
I'm sure the expectations people had in
no. You see,
have been shattered.
No, but you see, it helps. It helps. And look, let me tell you, it helps the body politic.
Yeah.
It helps the body politic because look,
all these university boys want to get into politics now because of.
Why should that be the case?
Yeah.
We should have a situation where every young investing man wants to go into business and begin to earn his own money. That should be the motivation. And at one time, everybody wanted to do farming.
Yep.
Everybody wanted to do. I was a farmer. I'm still a farmer, but not the same as before.
Yeah.
Or like my good brother here, he's a big farmer. You know, because farming was seen very attractive, and people wanted to belong. Everybody wanted to do something, get themselves involved in some farming. These are the kind of resets that Ghana must begin to see. So I think that you know,
it's a practice.
That's just my point.
How can anybody disagree with my brother Philip? How can anybody disagree? One of the major problems that this one CD levy has brought about is the result of bad communications. First of all, until recently, everybody thought that this was a new levy which was being imposed.
Yeah.
When in fact, it is only an increase in an existing levy that was not explained. Why they decided to keep this a secret, I don't know. They didn't fly a kite, they didn't do anything. And then when the measure was announced, that very morning, government communicators who were receiving free petrol at the time were now saying that as for me, I'm ready to pay for the levy. When you are taking free petrol. And it annoyed people to bits, you understand? So, bad communications. I mean, I spoke to my good friend Senna, who is the morning show host of Radio Gold.
Yeah.
He didn't know of the announcement until it had been made. So if you have such key communicators, a station like Radio Gold didn't even know that we were going to impose this. And all of them were hit by surprise and so on. Your communication is bad. You understand? So I fully agree with my brother Philip London. As for this cancellation of fuel allowance and fuel allocation to political appointees, I salute it. You know why I salute it? The aesthetics are good.
Very, very.
For a very long time,
Very.
governments have been telling the citizens to tighten their belts.
Yeah.
When people in government had no belt holes at all. Okay? Now you have a government who says, I'm going to impose a 1 cedi levy on petrol. But all of you who are in power, who are in government, have to bear some consequences.
Yeah.
So now we are all going to tighten our belt. The aesthetics are very good.
Yeah.
I've heard many people say, how much at all are we going to generate? It is not in the amount of money we are going to generate. It is the idea
Principle.
that when things go bad for the citizens, everybody else must suffer the consequence so that we can get a better future. That's the idea. And it's a very sensible move. The aesthetics are good. Some say it's a PR measure. Who says that PR measures are bad? They are good PR measures and bad PR measures. So even if it's a PR measure, it's a good PR measure. You understand? So I'm very comfortable with it. And it's not about the amount which will be saved. One of the things that I find most exciting about this decision, you know, these big men in government, most of them, when they go to functions, their drivers don't switch off the engines. They leave the engine on, the air condition is blowing.
They recline the seats.
So if the man is going to be in the function for 2 hours, the engine is running. Now that they are going to buy their own fuel, I want to see how many of them will keep their engines running. That alone is interesting for me. It makes me so happy. That now they will behave like all of us. That their engines will not be running when they are in a room, you know, talking for 30 minutes. That alone is satisfying.
I think that there is no argument on the rationality and logicality of the removal of the fuel allocations to appointees of state. I mean, and I like the way Mr. Koseprat has joined the two, the one CD and the removal, meaning that if we are visiting hardship on the citizens of this country, you must also bear part of the hardship. Because if we remove the fuel levy, you are going to buy the fuel. And when you buy the fuel, you are going to contribute to the levy. And so all of us are in it. It just demonstrates that when we say prudence in the management of the economy, you need to tweak certain things to communicate to Ghanaians that you mean business when you say you want to reset the economy. And these little things are what communicates to the people.
Right.
I mean, even in future, it should be possible not to give any kind of fuel support, because you see, public officers, ministers are public servants. They are paid from the public.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Public servants do not enjoy those things. So why do you want to treat public servants differently? Different public servants differently. So I agree entirely. But I really love the debate on the energy thing that has been advanced by Comrade Pratt. If we really want to develop this country, but I know that we're going to face resistance from developed countries and from the Western powers. We need to be looking at nuclear. It was only when the South Koreans decided that they will go nuclear. It was only when the Chinese decided that they will go nuclear that industrialization started with a big boost. The Chinese also had the Ganges River, hydro, but when they decided that nuclear energy was the way. And recently, when the tsunami occurred in Japan, and they shut down and said they were closing their nuclear plants. I don't know whether you have been following the news. They have gone back to open them, because generating power through thermal plants is expensive, and that cannot help industrialization, can't help factories. So I like the information that he has given, that the government is interested in exploring ways of bringing back the attempts at installing nuclear capabilities in this country to be able to, for civilian purposes. We don't want to attack we just want to generate our power. Because we are facing a difficult situation, and he knows, as a Pan-Africanist, we have been imposed on, a system has been imposed on us that was not our creation. Berlin Conference can be part of the reasons why we are held back. They divided us in such a way that we cannot be sustainable. We have to find a way. Africa has. That was why Nkrumah, so you must look at Nkrumah's statement when he said that the independence of Ghana is meaningless unless it is linked up with the total liberation of the African continent. Because looking at a new strategy altogether, how Africa as a collective could chart its own growth path. But obviously, the balkanization of Africa served the interests of the colonialists. And so they opposed, resisted, and ensured that Nkrumah never succeeded. And so the ideas that he championed so many years ago are the ideas that are now influencing what we now call globalization.
Thank you, Mr. President. Someone wants to know when you are launching your must-read book, because he says he must read your book. His name is Bibi from Musuko.
Well, there's a problem. You understand? It's the launching of the book is no longer in my hands. I've asked the president to launch the book, and I cannot impose a date and time on him. So we are all anxiously waiting for the president to give us a date and time, and then the book will be launched. You know, interestingly, I mean, unbelievable. I mean, this book was distributed at the AU summit in Malabo over a 3-day period and so on. As we sit here, we have more than 30,000 requests for the book. I mean, I can't believe it. You know, 30,000 requests for the book. And we're just wondering how we'll be able to cope with demand and so on, you know. But we are working on it. This is my first serious attempt at book writing. And it appears to have been successful. And also, I must, in all honesty, show a lot of gratitude to President John Dramani Mahama. You know, the fact that he wrote the foreword to the book has added a new dimension to the book. I mean, at the AU summit, heads of state were asking for the book. You know, I know that at least 5 heads of states got the book. Only yesterday, one of the diplomatic missions in Ghana told me that a foreign minister wanted a copy of the book and so on and so on. I mean, part of the attraction is that President Mahama wrote the foreword, you know, and he wrote a very good foreword. And you know that a lot of people don't know that he's the AU champion for reparations. He's the official AU champion for reparations. You know, so when he writes the foreword to a book on reparations, it adds so much weight. And I'm so grateful to him for you know, doing this honor, you know, to us and so on. I'm just so grateful to him, you know.
So, Bibi, you've heard it. We don't even know when. Even me, I don't have a copy. If the first one I got, I should have stolen that book. And if I had stolen it, I know the other witness would have taken it from me and not brought it back. So I still have my books with you.
Anyway.
But have you read the foreword? No?
No, not yet. I'm just waiting. You see,
yeah.
Revenge is like a meal. It is best when it is cold.
Yeah. IGP has presented his report on electoral violence. I think that occasioned, I believe, in 2024 to the president. Again, people are saying that why don't we also probe into what happened at Ablekuma North, you know, as a way of putting together a document that will guide us going into the future, particularly because we don't want to see the maiming of people, the shooting of people, the killing of people by reason of, you know, elections, really. So, Mr. Land, let me come to you on this one first.
Well, first of all, I must say that it is good that the IGP has so quickly concluded his investigations into these matters. I mean, these investigations actually did start. They were never really concluded. You know, they had been off and on. So it is good that he has been able to submit the report, and I want to commend him for that, and also commend the president, because it's something that a lot of Ghanaians were really looking forward to seeing, that these situations will be investigated. People can find justice. People who need to be compensation will get their due, and then put these matters to rest. And also that the appropriate lessons will be learned from these reports. But I haven't seen this report. I don't know what is inside it. But I mean, some of the things in these reports are not things that we don't really, I mean, things that are strange to us. The issues that cause violence, we know. The problems that came about in Ayawaso, Ablekuma North, you know. I mean, it is all a matter of managing the situation properly. Whatever is in the report, fine. He submitted it to the president will look at it and come out with his decisions on that. I believe there will probably be another one on this latest one. But ahead of us is Akwetia coming. That is where my interest is. There are a lot of things you have found in this report that can go a very long way in advising in the management of this upcoming Akwetia situation. My worry about Akwetia is not about the political actors. It's not the political actors. Yes, I feel very sorry that certain things happened in the last election continuation, which is this last one that we had, and the commentaries that came about. I was sad to hear a lady, good friend of mine, say that she was not sorry that another lady, who's also a good friend of mine, had suffered what she had suffered. I was sorry to hear that. And another lady friend of mine too also said she was also not sorry that I mean, those were, I think, unfortunate. But we must go beyond that. That tit for tat. She did it to me, so I'm happy it's been done to her. No. I think we've gone beyond that. We've gone beyond that. Our election regulations say that campaigning ceases 24 hours before the election. It is the 24 hours before the election and the period of the election that are the most critical. What for me is most dangerous about Akwetia is that it is a heavy Galamsey area. Galamsey has become a national, I heard His Excellency the President himself describe it as a national emergency or something to that effect. This is serious. Just yesterday, or the day before, a Galamsey pit collapsed, and I hear they were able to retrieve about 4 bodies, and there were many others. They don't know how many others.
More than 20 trapped.
You know, reports are saying dozens, etc. Trapped, unable to be retrieved. And when the district chief executive, in the presence of some police officers and NADMO officials, went to try and lead a rescue of these persons who were, the youth in the area had ganged up against them, threatening them to the extent that they had to flee, the district chief executive and the police, to the extent that he had sent a request for military support. This is just an unfortunate tragedy that had occurred, where illegal miners were in a dire situation, and here were people. This was not a political matter. The political head with the police authorities and NADMO officials coming to try to rescue the people, and the youth are challenging them. Those youth who were challenging him, some of whom were armed with all kinds of cudgels, some of whom went and blocked roads, some of whom did all kinds of things against the officials who had come. They will be ready to behave the same way in the by-election. And to them, it is neither NDC nor MPP. To them, it is their own criminal activity that they're going to do. So for me, these are the challenges that the IGP must. I commend him for the reports that he has presented. I hope action will be taken, but I think we must advise ourselves.
Well, Dennis, what Akwete said, I should tell you that even if the book costs 1 million Ghana cedis, he shall go to IMF for the money and buy it as his first preparation.
So I think that basically we all agree that the consensus that we have forged in this country under the Fourth Republic is that we are going to elect our leaders. We are going to elect our leaders through democratic means. An election simply means expressing your preference of one person over the other. And that doesn't involve violence. I mean, that simply is liberty. Your liberty to choose who should govern you. And so any violence that characterizes our attempt at democratic choice ought to be condemned. I mean, because that is not the consensus we have elected. The fact that even people die in such circumstances is condemnable. Because, I mean, you need people. Ghana is not a duty mandated by law to go and vote. It's a civic responsibility. There's no compulsion. But where people elect to go and exercise their franchise, nothing should happen to them. We should let them go and exercise their franchise. And that's why the president was so appalled about what happened in the previous elections, that many people lost their lives. As many as 8 people lost their lives. In the 2024 elections, I was really troubled when somebody, a bystander in Nyankpala, died by reason of gunshots from the camp of the MPP. I mean, I was simply shocked. He had nothing to do, and there was no, the ballot box was not at the place where that person died. Someone just behaved with impunity and shot and killed him. He must be held responsible. And that happened on the 7th in Utu Senya. The same thing happened. So you see, that is why we as a people must condemn it. In the Ablekuman North elections, I have been wondering every day. I turn about trying to understand what happened. So what were the MPP elements there doing? What were they doing there? Because the party has said that they were not interested. And they had publicly said that they were not going to be part of the elections. You think that if those elements were not there in Ablekuma, there would have been violence? You think so?
No, but the fact that they were there was...
No, but what were they doing there? When your party, Movement for Change, was hard done by the MPP, and then when your Alan Cheremete was hard done by the MPP, by violence being visited on his agent, and he complained. He said, "No, this is not the party that I invested in. I reposed my confidence in. I'm moving away." When they were doing the primaries, no Movement for Change or Alan Cheremete supporter was there, and so there was no violence. Now, when the NDC were in the studio, I mean, I remember with Kosi Pratt and then Doctor, when Ayoku West were going to happen, we were here. And then the chairman of the party said, well, because of what is happening there, we are withdrawing from the contest. NDC totally withdrew. And the violence stopped because those who were there could not turn on each other. So I simply, in law we have what we call contributory negligence. Do we also hold those people who were there in defense of their party responsible for what happened? Because your party said they were not going to be there. Why would you go there? And now you are even apologizing to your party for disobeying the party. And then you find leading members of the party there in contravention of the decision taken by the party, and then violence. And then you find people condemning the violence. How did it happen? But in this police case, I think that we should thank him and commend him. He's lived up to his responsibilities at the IGP. He was directed to submit a report. He submitted a report. The report will be stated like the report of Reform Boateng is being stated. and then the persons who were responsible for the death of these people or for the mayhem that resulted from the election-related violence will be held responsible. Accountability is very important for any democratic setting, and people who have misconducted themselves ought to be held accountable.
All right,
Finally.
Well, first of all, we don't know the content of the report. We are just told that this report has been presented to the president. But I am alarmed at something. Public discussion of political violence creates the impression that it's a recent phenomenon. It is not. From the very foundations of our attempt to build democracy in Ghana, violence was embedded. And it was worse then than it is now. It doesn't justify it though, but the history must be properly told. Just look, in 1951, Kwame Nkrumah was living in a house near the Malata market, a brick house. His opponents went and bombed the house. He was living in that house with Madam Yaniba. They went and bombed it. They wanted to kill Nkrumah and his mother. It's part of the political violence. You understand? Look, Accra Sports Stadium, school children had gathered there. They went and dropped bombs in the midst of the school children to kill them, innocent school children, part of the political violence. I am more horrified by a story which has been repeatedly told by Dr. Tony Edu. You know, I'm more horrified. Where a woman, I'm told pregnant woman, was actually captured by the opponents of Nkrumah. They spread her legs and pounded her private part with pistol until she died. Nothing which is happening today can be compared to that. You understand? It doesn't justify what is happening today. But don't let us create the impression that we woke up one morning and then NDC and NPP decided to introduce violence. Violence in our politics has a history. Okay? Now, listen, I mean, you go to an election, 8 people are killed. Election-related violence. Nothing is done. What do you think will happen? 8 people are shot to death. Nothing happens. No investigations. If President Mahama had not become president, there would have been no investigation. On one of the anniversaries of the Ewasu Wogon, incident, I was invited as a guest speaker. And Kwame, what I saw, people who had lost their arms, who had lost their limbs, people who had been disfigured for life, people who could no longer work again, and so on, only because they attempted to go and vote in an election. And nothing happened to anybody. We set up the short committee, it came up with a report, nothing happened to anybody. Those perpetrators are still walking free, and so on. So I think it's important to begin to take election violence seriously. And quite honestly, Kwame, I mean all of you, quite honestly, I really missed IGP Dampare. No, I really missed IGP Dampare. The last 2 by-elections, you saw how peaceful it was. You saw police deployment. You saw a very serious attempt to make sure that it did not degenerate into violence and so on. And who takes the credit? Now there's another by-election coming up, and I hear all the threats. Party activists warning that they are going to slap people, some warning that they are going to mobilize macho men, some talking about reviving vigilante groups and so on. This is a challenge for the sitting IGP. He has to do better than Dampare. He has to justify why President Mahama removed Dampare and brought him there. And the only justification can be that the next by-election will be perhaps more peaceful than the by-election which brought Jechi Kwesi back to Parliament. So this is a challenge to the IGP. It's up to him. Whatever he has to do to ensure that the next by-election is peaceful is his business. If he needs our support, everybody will be willing to support him. But he has to put in place measures to ensure that nobody suffers a scratch on the skin in that election. You understand? I mean, and I've told this story many times. I went to Cuba one time to see an election. And my brother, it's so beautiful. You go to the polling station, there's no policeman there, there's no soldier there, nobody is carrying a stick, nobody is carrying a gun. School children are the people supervising the elections in Cuba. But here, you go to a polling station, machine guns and so on. Why? What message are we sending about ourselves? So, Mr. IGP, you have a task to perform, and at the end of the day, you are going to compare your performance with that of Dampare. You must justify why Dampare was removed and you were put there. Finish.
Okay,
yeah.
Maybe he was busy writing the report, that's why he was.
Well, thank you very kindly indeed, Honorable Mr. Husseini, Mr. Pratt, and Mr. Philip London for your time this morning. Most importantly, thank you to the viewers for spending your morning with me. My name is Kwame Usuna.
I would really have liked to discuss the outrage of Vladimir Zelensky, but we'll have another time.
All right, so I'll see you tomorrow. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Hello, Madam Bola. How are you and how is Lagos?
Kwame, Lagos day oh. How is Accra?
Accra is fine. We can't complain. Are my fabrics on the way?
Yes, I hope my money is also on the way.
As we speak, my accountant is sending money to you and others at GCB.
Money don't enter.
That is a lifesaver.
Yeah, Lady D. What's up, baby?
Tia, I got the money.
Oh, that's beautiful. It was fast.
Oh, and guess what? It was so easy and faster than I thought.
I'm busy right now. Let me call you back later, yeah? All right. Love you, baby.
See you soon. Bye.
From country to country, make seamless transactions across Africa with GCB. For more information on PAPS and how to get started, call toll free on 0800 422 422.
GCB, your bank for life.
How can we do some local fast food?